Hey everyone, Alex here, coming to you from my living room during the stay-at-home order here in Minnesota. One of the things that I do that keeps me sane during this quarantine is taking care of my houseplants. A bit of a background is I became a little bit of a houseplant enthusiast about a year ago after watching one of the best houseplant tour videos out there, Jenna Marbles giving a tour of her plants. The epitome of self-care is watching that video over and over until you no longer feel any stress in your life. When she put that video out there, it really inspired me to kind of pick up a new hobby. And so ever since then, I've been collecting, finding, buying, receiving plants here and there that I've been taking care of. So just as a way to show people what I've been doing with that, I decided to make this little video. Before I get started, a couple of things for context. This is the day before I would usually water all of my plants, so to facilitate making them easier to pick up and move and stuff, they're a little dry, they look a little droopy, but the next video I'm gonna post is gonna be how I take care of my plants, so you'll get to learn more about that as we move forward. So all of these plants I either bought myself online or received from people on campus, either at work or even just friends who said, hey, want to take a plant? Who am I to say no? So that's where these came from. So the first plant I'm going to show you is actually one of the ones that started off the whole thing. This is a jade pothos, an Epipremnum aureum in the jade cultivar. You can tell because it doesn't really have any variegation. It's a solid green all the way through all of the leaves. And it's a little bit darker of a green than you would find with like a neon, so that's why I'm assuming it's a jade. I got this one from a coworker, Dahlia, over in Oasis. She originally gave me a cutting of like 5 leaves. I broke it up and potted them in here, and here we are however many months later, looking pretty healthy. This leaf is actually pretty new. It still feels really rubbery. I love when new leaves come in and they have that like new leaf feel. There's no dust. It feels very squeaky clean, I guess is a way to describe it. But this is one of my favorite plants that I have. It's one of the OGs, and a lot of the plants that I have, you'll see I plant in terracotta. The reason being, it's a lot easier for me to control the watering. I would rather have a plant dry out really fast and then me water it more often than have one that doesn't dry out fast enough and then it starts to get like root rot, really droopy and things like that. So most of the plants that I have are in terracotta, which you'll see. So this is again a jade pothos. Here we have another pothos. This was originally given to me by Liz in the Women's Center. It was in a metal kind of like trough with a bunch of different pothos vines sticking out of it. It was not doing too hot. I think there were no holes in the bottom, and so the soil got super moist and roots started to rot out. So when I first got the plant, the last day of being allowed to go to campus, Liz gave it to me. I brought it home and basically I gutted it. Took out all the soil, rinsed out all of the plants that were in there. A lot of the roots were pretty bad, smelled really bad. So I cut off all of the really long stringy vines and just kept the really nice leaves that were still there. Propagated them back into some wet soil. The metal trough, I punched some holes in the bottom. Didn't really work out in the end, so I moved it into a terracotta pot. Again, I would rather water something more than once and have it dry out in between than have it kind of sit in that wet soil. So I don't know, we'll see how this goes. This looks like it's actually a couple different cultivars because we've got these really dark non-variegated leaves of like a jade, but on the other hand, some of the like mildly variegated of a neon or a golden, and so hey, they're all kind of living together as one family. One leaf's looking a little iffy, so we'll see how that goes, but otherwise hopefully it becomes big and bushy. Here we have another cutting from that Women's Center pothos that had the different varieties in it. I've been water propagating it because it didn't fit in the pot, just to see maybe I can replant it in the middle of that pot once it gets a little more established, but it rooted really quickly, so a lot of promise with this one. Now here we have a little bit of an experiment. So off of Amazon, I actually got a Marble Queen pothos. That's what this is specifically. It was listed as a Snow Queen, which you can tell from the very mottled whitish variegation on here. At the same time, I had also ordered a philodendron, a Hartley philodendron, specifically, what is it, the Heteroseum or Scandens or however you want to pronounce it. When I first got them, I got them at the same time, but I only had one free pot. So did a little bit of an experiment and I actually planted the philodendron, the heartleaf philodendron, and the pothos in the same pot at the same time. So we'll see how this goes. But so far I haven't really had many issues. There's a leaf that wasn't getting a lot of sun that I had to start to cut away a little bit to save it. But otherwise, the philodendron's putting out some new spikes and leaves and things. So we'll check back in a little bit, see how this goes. It's an experiment in progress. Here we have a variegated spider plant, a Chlorophytum commosum variegatum. I really like it because it's super simple to take care of, really pretty with the variegation with the white on the outside and the green on the inside. One thing to note is a few of the leaves kind of got a little bit of, I guess, burn on the edges. I was led to believe that if the humidity in the room was too low, you can mist them every once in a while to kind of bring up that humidity. Well, misting plants doesn't actually increase the humidity for much more than like maybe 10 to 15 minutes. And if the spray bottle isn't sanitized in between usage, you can actually get bacteria that lands on the plant. And so some of the plants where the water sat on for too long, some of the leaves I mean, got a little burnt. Some of them much more than others. So what I do with these, I'll just cut off the brown ends and then hopefully it'll recover. I stopped doing that a couple weeks ago, so hopefully it'll recover pretty fully. Again, terracotta pot. Yeah, I really like it. I got this actually off of Etsy. The seller is Kawaii Garden. I'll link it in the description below. I haven't really had any problems. Spider plants are super easy to take care of. And when I first got this, it was in a tiny little 4-inch like nursery pot, and now this is a 6-inch terracotta, and it is doing fairly well. So yeah, if you're looking for a really good easy starter plant, spider plant is definitely one of the ways you could go. Now, speaking of spider plants, this is also a Chlorophytum commosum, but this is a Bonnie type, a curly spider plant. Variegation is very similar to the other one, except it has this really curly, really tangly, fun kind of shape to it that I really like. Another cool thing is that it puts out these runners almost constantly, and so these are actually little baby spider plants or spiderettes. At one point, one of them got big enough, I was able to put it in its own pot. This is just a baby that was from here, and now that one's starting to grow into 2 separate plants. So this one kind of grows like crazy. I really like it because it's really pretty, has kind of the same variegation stuff as the other one, but with this really like tangled curly look to it. I don't know, it almost looks like a cool hairstyle. I have another one of these that I propagated in water that I'll show later once I get to the water plants, but again, I have not had any issues with this. I got this one off of Etsy as well from Jacqueline Home Garden, one of my favorite shops that I've gone to for plants on Etsy, so I'll link them in the description as well. But this is my Bonnie. Now this one is one of the experiments that went a little awry. This is a baby Boston fern, or Nephrolepsis exaltata. These like to be kept with pretty moist soil, so I originally had it in a plastic pot that would hold the water much longer, the moisture, and it got to the point where about a month in, the water was still in the soil. It would never dry out. So I moved it to this terracotta pot a couple weeks ago. Hopefully I can save it before, but as you can see, some of the stalks are falling apart a little bit. I did get this one from Etsy as well. This one was from, I believe, Pretty and Green in Etsy. Super great seller. What happened here is due to my mistake and not them. I would totally recommend getting one for yourself and trying it out, experimenting a little bit, and then hopefully if this recovers, I can show a better update in the future. But yeah, baby Boston fern. Now here, this beauty here is a Moonlight Dracaena, a Dracaena studinari of the Moonlight variety. I got this from Target. It was labeled as a dumb cane, and I was wondering why it didn't look like any of the dumb canes I'd seen in any of the pictures. I'd actually happened to stumble upon a couple days later a video by Plantarina where she talked about Dracaena care. Lo and behold, she pulls out one of these guys, and it's a Moonlight Dracaena. I kind of see how maybe they mislabeled it at Target because it does have this like cane structure to it, but not a very fickle plant. I've had a lot of fun taking care of it. This is actually a cover pot because it's terracotta like I like, but it doesn't have a hole in the bottom. So I've just been watering it in the nursery pot, waiting for it to get a little bit more root bound, and then possibly transferring it into a bigger terracotta pot with an actual hole in the bottom. But got it from Target, not super expensive, and I've really liked it so far. And speaking of Target, I got this one at Target as well. This is a money tree, a Pachira aquatica. Just like the Dracaena, it's in a nursery pot because the terracotta pot doesn't have a hole at the bottom. It's in this like really peaty moss kind of soil mix, so I don't have to water it as often. I just really like how pretty and fresh it is, and as it grows bigger I can braid it to continue it growing up in the way it is. So this one's a little bit more hands-on in the far future, but for now I just really like the way it looks. Now here we have a Philodendron Brazil. I actually got this from Logi's. I've been having a little bit of an issue with it because it's starting to outgrow this pot to the point where if I just place it down on a surface, it'll fall over because it leans such to one side. However, because of the quarantine, I can't just go to a hardware store or a gardening center and get a bigger, heavier pot for it. So I've just been keeping it on a shelf where the leaves can be supported until I can get a bigger pot. Plus it is pretty root bound up in here. Hopefully once it gets in a bigger pot, we'll see how much more full and happy it gets. But for now, kind of like me in this quarantine, we just gotta sit it out and hope for the best, see what happens in the future. So speaking of droopy plants, this here is a golden oxalis, or an oxalis spiralis of the Aurea cultivar. I got this from Logi's as well. It seems to be pretty healthy. I tried to put this stick in here to kind of guide it in a way to keep standing, but it just keeps falling over. And I'm not exactly sure how to make it stay standing without accidentally pulling out leaves or something like that. But I like the coloration of it. It has like this, the newer leaves have this like greenish to them. The more established leaves are more brown to gold. So it almost looks like autumn in one plant. So I really like it. It's still in its nursery pot. Once I figure out how to get it to stand up and transfer to a new pot, I'll let you know how this goes. But for now, we just got this little droopy golden oxalis that I'll figure it out. Here we have a fun little tiny plant. This is a common or English ivy, a Hedera helix. I actually got this as a cutting in the hallway between Morris Hall and the CSU at MSU. There's an English ivy growing in a little windowsill. Like if you're walking from Morris to Wiggly Administration, it's on the right, kind of like in an alcove. One day I had a scissors, so I just took a snip of a branch that was doing really well, put it in here. I actually had to walk it home, and in the process it got cold, so all the leaves that were on the stick eventually just turned red and fell off. But miraculously, it started to grow its own little new leaves. I know these guys can get pretty big pretty fast. This one, the propagation process is really slow, so it's not there yet, but once it starts to really grow, hopefully I can see it branch out a little bit more. But for now, this is just my little tiny common ivy that I got for free. Okay, so this one's interesting. My ex-roommate, when she moved out, left this for me as a gift. She didn't just pawn it off on me like I wanted it. I believe she got it as a present as well. Not really sure what it is. When she left it, it had maybe like 3 leaves and it was in a little metal pail. I transferred it to this terracotta pot and started fertilizing it and whatnot, and it kind of really started to grow up. This leaf is massive compared to the other ones, and that's one of the newer ones. However, a couple months in, I dropped it and it pinched off where the growth was, and so no new leaves have come in, but it started to put off this like flower spike. I'm not exactly sure what this plant is. At first I thought it was a rubber tree, but this flower spike, I'm not exactly sure what to do about it. These flowers bloom and then fall right off. They're not super permanent. This is the second time it's bloomed. Don't really know what to do with it. I just take care of it as I do with the other plants, and it seems to be being pretty happy. But yeah, I'm not really sure what this is. If anyone has any idea, I've looked up ficuses, I've looked up peperomias, and I see some similarities between some and others. Like this big new leaf is all green with some white spots. Some of the older leaves, however, have this like dark maroon crimsonish color to them. The bottoms are also very much like that. So I don't know. If anyone has any ideas, let me know in the comments. I would love to know what this is so I can take care of it more properly. Okay, so a fair warning, a couple of these plants coming up here look a little on the rough side. A bit of backstory. One of the sellers that I really like off Etsy, I purchased some of their plants during the winter without making the foresight of ordering heat packs with it, so when they got shipped, they got cold damaged. So for now, they're kind of in recovery stage. They don't look that great, but they are showing some promise. So I'm going to show you those, but again, with the big disclaimer that these got damaged from the cold, and so I'm more just trying to keep them alive to see what will happen than anything else. So here we have a ZZ plant. Like I had said, it got cold damage. This was a lot bigger. It was, I think, 3 or 4 stems. 3 of them actually wanted rotting away. This one still kind of holds up. And this leaf is the only one that survived without turning black. I'm really surprised that this one has been keeping up for so long. But I am noticing some promise with it in that there is a little bit of growth coming out at the bottom right here. So it's hard to see on the camera, but hopefully that means this is on the recovery. Excited to have an update in the future once this starts to be not just recovering, but actually thriving. Similar story with this. This is the stalk of a Chinese evergreen, specifically of the Lady Valentine variety, Aglaonema, I believe. So yeah, it looks a little rough. This is all that's left of a leaf that stayed. You can still see a little bit of the pinkishness. I was actually able to save a leaf stalk from it that was growing off separately and repotted in its own little thing as well. So these are actually both the same plant that I wound up separately to try to save them. It does look a little rough. However, I don't know if it'll show up on camera, but if you can see here, we have brand new growth. Here we have a couple stalks that are coming up there. There's another one coming up here. And if you look up here where this one leaf is still surviving, we have a brand new leaf growing in there. So what I'm thinking is, after it kind of reestablishes itself a little bit more, see what's actually viable on this plant. And I'll probably wind up peeling off these more dead layers to let the fresh, new, living layer breathe a little more. Oh, I actually see there's 2 stalks growing in there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little nubs coming out of that one. And then the leaf itself too, it's a little harder to see, but here we have some new growth coming in right there too. So hopefully they seem to be making a recovery, so hopefully this is a good sign. Now, something I haven't shown y'all yet is I really like keeping water propagated cuttings and helping them to grow into full water plants. So as I had shown you previously, I had that really curly spider plant. This is another one of those babies that came from it. So this is that curly spider plant, but this one's been grown entirely in water. And so what I really like about the water growing the plants is you can see the root systems as they grow in. So here you can see as it's rooting around these rocks. It's another way of looking at the growth of a plant in a way that you normally wouldn't see in the soil. So here we can see some nice roots growing in, really snaking in along these rocks. So when I go to water these plants in the next video, I'll show you how I take care of these as well. But this is one of the curly spider plants. I also have, this is a solid green spider plant. I got this actually as a runner that was maybe like half the size from the Counseling and Student Personnel office at MSU, and I planted it in water, and just look at the way that it has rooted out. I really like the way it contrasts with the green beads in here, the glass beads. And so kind of like these leaves here are new, but that was basically the length of the runner when I first got it. These are like the OGs that have been around the whole time, and it has just been thriving. I'm really excited by how well this one has been going. In addition, in that same CSP office, I got a cutting of the, I believe this is a golden pothos. Again, I got it for free, so I couldn't like look up its cultivar or anything, so I'm just assuming. This one is also water grown since I cut it, propagated it. So all of these roots that are here actually started growing when I propagated it. I didn't take it out of soil and put it in here. This is fully water grown. So I really like the way the roots are growing in with this more natural looking rock as well. There were a couple leaves that were growing in the water and kind of rotted away, so I cut those away as they didn't seem to be making it. But overall, I really like the way that just like the vase with the stone with the roots growing in. I just love the water grown plants as well. And speaking of water grown plants, I can't neglect to talk about my Marimos. These are Marimo or moss balls. These ones are looking a little bit brown because I pulled them out of an aquarium that didn't have the right conditions for the water. So I've just been putting them in this jar for the past couple weeks now. And they seem to be making a recovery, but you can see all the stuff floating around. That's just like the brown grossness that was on it when I took it out of the aquarium. I really like these guys because they're cute, they move around. Literally, you can swish it around a little bit if you want them to keep the round shape. So when I take care of these guys, I just like squeeze them out, roll them back into a ball, put them in some fresh water, and yeah. I actually had this jar in my office on campus for the past 2 semesters, but I was able to salvage it before they closed campus for the quarantine. So that's these Marimo moss balls. The Agagropilla lineae, everyone just knows them as Marimo or moss balls. They're actually a type of algae, but who cares? They're cute as heck. And last but certainly not least, I have this. It's also kind of an experiment. I have these air plants that I've been growing for a few months. But I recently got this little kind of greenhouse thing because the plants were drying out really fast. And so I thought maybe if I put them in this glass case, they'll dry out a lot less often. Now, I was not incorrect in that assumption. I haven't had to soak them twice a week like I had before. It's pretty dry in my apartment. However, an issue that I'm seeing now though is, I don't know if you can see it, I've got little puffs of mold growing on these. So when I go to take care of these tomorrow, I'll have to clean that up. So I have to kind of probably think of a way of maybe like, after I water them, leave it open for a little while or something like that. So that way they can get some airflow. It doesn't seal completely, so it's not like they're suffocating, but we'll figure it out. I just got this a little bit ago, so it's still a work in progress. So there is one more plant. It's a water-grown plant that I haven't shown, but in order to really get it to the camera, I have to drain the water out of it because it's in a gallon vase. And so rather than that, I'll just show it to you when I show you the care video in the next video, because that'll involve doing a water change. So keep an eye out for that in the future. So yeah, so that's it. That's what I have for plants. I'll show you the setup when I do the care video in the future as well. But for now, this is just an introduction to everyone. So as you can see, I really like terracotta pots. I really like water growing some plants. I also really like your common houseplants that are really easy to take care of, the pothos, the spider plants. I am exploring a little bit into a little bit more difficult plants to take care of with the Chinese evergreens and stuff like that, but once those make a full recovery, hopefully we'll have a better outcome for a future video. So yeah, those are my plants. If you stuck around to the end, you're the real MVP. Be sure to hit a like down below, subscribe if you're really interested. Be sure to follow the American Indian Affairs at MSU Mankato page to find more updates about what we're doing in our office and to see where I'll be reading the comments and responding and stuff. So you can see more of our social engagement posts on there as well. So for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.